Hello to everyone who may or may not be here. Welcome back to the stream where we play non-violent games, games that reward the player for intellectual and or emotional gameplay loops rather than for combat or other kind of violent gameplay loops. Wait, no, I messed that up. Welcome back to the stream where we play non-violent games, games that reward the player for intellectual and or emotional engagement rather than for combat or other kind of violent gameplay loops. There we go. I don't know why I messed that up after so many, months of just doing it without trouble. It's weird, but here we are. And without further ado, let's get started. Good morning to you, Miss Nada. Ah, good morning, Professor. Ready for today's proceedings? I hope so. I should be. Even I, with nothing left to... Good morning, my dear fellows. Oh, Mr. Sholmes, you're here. Why, naturally. A true gentleman stands shoulder to shoulder with his friends in battle at all times. Thank you, I really appreciate it. I'll see you later, then. Now, Professor, we really need you to remain calm in the courtroom today. Yes, do try your hardest not to enter the witness stand uninvited again. Yes, I will! I realize it was a mistake, but my dear fellows, I must interject. Oh, you're still here, Mr. Sholmes. What's the matter? Surely you've overlooked some praise, have you not? To be cast in my direction, hmm? Sorry, I don't follow. Must I spell it out? I, the great Enoch Sholmes, the greatest detective of worldwide acclamation, arose at some ungodly hour to be here now, first thing in the morning. A miracle, you must agree. Well, if I must agree, then... As you know, my sleep is quite impregnable. Iris had to employ her full wit of tactics. She pulled the covers off, shook me, poked both cheeks, punched me, and kicked me from the bed. Then she poured a boiling cup of her latest experimental blend on my face, and at last I was bestirred. Oh my, Iris has been busy. Iris doesn't have it in her to go that far. She's too nice. Ah, I sense the spirit of a fellow scientist, one who relishes the infinite possibilities of blending tea. I'm the one worthy of praise here, not Iris. This is my victory. Sorry to cut in. Sorry to cut in. Oh, Inspector Gregson. Good morning. Gregson, my dear fellow. Why the grim expression at this delightfully early hour? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I've been confronted with a grimmer expression, Dear me. Are you going to take that insult lying down, Professor? What? I don't know! Poor Professor. Honey White, here's the paperwork you asked for. What paperwork? Ah, I took the liberty of requesting it yesterday. I have a feeling it may prove useful. Oh, that's too loud, isn't it? Apologies. I just noticed the volume levels. You won't believe the oops I had to jump through to get this brat out of the archives. It's the professor's autopsy report. That mass murderers? Who killed 5 members of the aristocracy. He was found guilty in a closed trial 10 years ago now. It was all done under wraps. And he was quickly executed soon after the trial. It's all in here. The killer's autopsy report has been entered into the court record. The autopsy report of the mass murderer known as the Professor, who was tried and found guilty by closed trial 10 years ago. I don't know what to say. Thank you, Inspector. Yes, much obliged, Gregson. Yes, much obliged, Gregson. Us slowly lot at the yard are just doing what we can in the shadow of the great Detective Sholmes, of course. Just doing what we can in the shadow of the great Detective Holmes, of course. Well then, Professor Harebrained, this is it. Today, we're going to lay all this to rest at last. I wish you the best of luck, Professor. I suppose he'll be in there today, will he? Drebber. Yes, we expect the prosecution to summon him as a witness. I'm still amazed that you managed to find him in just one day. I really owe you both so much. Counsel and the defendant, the trial is about to resume. Kindly make your way into the courtroom at once. This is it then, the final chapter. Funny, my heart's racing a little. I've not felt this before, actually. This strange foreboding. As if something's going to happen in this trial that I'm not ready for. But I can't let that distract me from the only thing that really matters. Finding the truth. (24th of October, 9:30 a.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. We resume the public hearing of Albert Harebrae, and here present who stands accused of murder. Are the counsels ready for the prosecution and defense? Are the counsels for the prosecution and defense ready to proceed? The prosecution is ready, my lord. The defense is ready, my lord. As promised, Lord Van Zieks has his apprentice with him. His apprentice with memory loss. If I may, Lord Van Zieks. Yes, my lord. There appears to be someone standing at your side. Ah, yes. My apprentice and assistant. The prosecution believes today's proceedings will see the complexity of this case rise considerably. I therefore instructed my assistant to attend to ensure the smooth running of the trial. And the smooth running of liquid refreshments, by the look of it. The way he holds himself, the way he moves, it couldn't be anyone else. But he's still suffering from amnesia, so there's really nothing we can do at the moment. I know, but... oh, this is so very hard. Oh, this is so very hard. It would appear the prosecution has done a fine job in responding to the demands of the court made yesterday. I understand you have successfully secured the engineer who disappeared from the scene on the day in question. Yes, my lord. Yes, my lord. I intend to call him as a witness shortly. Very good, very good. Now then, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, who have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this courtroom today, are you ready and willing to proceed? Okay, who do we have here? What is his voice, I should say. Oh boy, a bot. Banned. Wait, unable to ban user? What the hell? What do you mean unable to ban user? Something went wrong? What is going wrong? Well, maybe I can ban them from a different device then. No, because it didn't appear on it. Well... Ah! Something's going wrong then. That's annoying. That's really annoying. Okay, well, I deleted his message at least. We'll see what happens. Dun, dun.
I'm most to have fun.
Of course, my lord. I'm sure we all understand the importance of doing our civic duty.
I do so despise deception and deceit. I find it so very wearing. To have a man's... I do so despise deception and deceit. I find it so very wearing. Science experiment. To take a man's life with a conjuring trick, it is against the magician's code, not to mention the law.
And a fake scientist should feel the wrath of God, if you ask me.
And he's burned his skull.
And a fake scientist should feel the wrath of God, if you ask me.
We have to listen to what's... we have to listen to what's said on both sides of the fence. Set on what? That's it, isn't it?
What? Wasn't like this in my day. Wasn't like this at all.
If all parties are ready to proceed, you may begin, Lord Vadzix.
Before I do, my lord, there is a report I must read to the court. Yesterday at the Great Exhibition Grounds, the evidence of primary importance in this case, the super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine, which was installed on the experimentation stage, was deliberately destroyed in an explosion affected by an unknown person or persons. It was what? An explosion? This is an outrage. This is an outrage.
Yes, I heard this grave news yesterday. Scotland Yard submitted a report to my office in the evening. I read that in the machine, the machine was blasted to smithers, and the wreckage reduced to ashes in the flames.
I have here a photographic print of the scene taken in the wake of the explosion. It shows what little remains of the machine.
Yes, a terrible business. He did it to destroy the evidence, did he? That Enoch Drebber. The court will take this print as evidence, counsel.
As the explosion photograph has been entered the court record. A photographic print of the experimentation stage after it was completely leveled by a time bomb. The metal floor of the stage has been blown open by the explosion. Late yesterday afternoon, the protection afforded to the machine by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act was revoked. However, before a thorough investigation could begin, the invention was obliterated from existence. As such, this will become a very different trial. As it stands now, with no evidence on which to draw meaningful conclusions, the authenticity of the kinesis machine will remain forever in obscurity.
Indeed.
A most unfortunate state of affairs. However, one thing remains clear. The victim's death was the result of the actions of the accused. Of that we can be certain. For it was the accused himself who was operating the machine and who ultimately caused its loss of control. As Lord Van Zieks rightly says, this is a very different trial now. The accused accepts responsibility for his part in the events that transpired. He acknowledges that Mr. Asman died as a result of the accident caused by his machine's malfunction. However, unbeknownst to the professor, he was being deliberately deceived by a pair of very clever fraudsters. Names, Counsel, if you please. The engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, and the victim himself, Mr. Odie Asman. So what exactly were these two men up to behind the defendant's back? The defense intends to expose that information, thus establishing the unequivocal innocence of the defendant. Thank you, counsels. The positions of the prosecution and defense have been clearly stated. Lord Van Zieks, summon your first witness, please. At once, my lord. The prosecution calls the engineer, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to the stand. State your name and occupation for the court. Name, Enoch Drebber. Occupation. Hard to pin down, I would say. Yeah, black model. Yes, one of my feelings, though. I've seen it somewhere before. Oh, you do? Oh, exactly the same feeling myself. Your file indicates that you are currently being investigated in connection with another case. The theft of a waxwork model, is it? A most extraordinary sounding business. But that has no bearing on this trial, I assure you. Leave it from your mind. You're familiar with the public experiment carried out at the Great Exhibition some days ago. The accused super high voltage instantaneous kinesis demonstration. Yes, you could say that. I am aware of it. There was a terrible accident, wasn't there? It was you, Mr. Drebber, who constructed the vast machine used in the experiment. Or so our investigations indicate. Can you confirm your involvement? Yes, I constructed it. In precise accordance with the blueprints, but that's all. And the court would be very interested to hear your thoughts about the machine, I'm sure. An amazing device, if you ask me. The pinnacle of modern science, making instantaneous kinesis a reality at last. What? Good gracious! Do you mean to say that the experiment was bona fide? Is that your belief, sir? Yes, that is very much my belief. Such a waste that it blew up. But we've already established the machine was nothing more than a prop for an elaborate conjuring trick. You have established nothing of the sort. All that was shown during yesterday's proceedings is that the same outcome could have been produced by means of staged trickery. The defense merely proposed the method and demonstrated its feasibility, nothing more. But... We've procrastinated long enough, I fear. Witness, you will now give your formal testimony about the machine that you constructed for the purpose of the demonstration at the Great Exhibition. Understood. I met the young professor approximately 1 year ago, through Mr. Asman's introduction. He provided me with the blueprints, and I constructed the machine to the precise specifications. It was no trick. If the whole show was a fraud, it would have required a body double. Tell me, did the victim have a twin? All the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads, and then crash headfirst into the crystal tower. A terrible accident, I grant you. Perhaps the science on which the machine was built was flawed somehow. A body double? That goes without saying, surely. To give the impression that something has moved when in reality it hasn't. It's a basic conjuring principle. The deception cannot be achieved without substituting the original with a fake at some point in the performance. But would I be right in saying you haven't managed to establish anything along those lines? Incidentally, the prosecution has already confirmed that Mr. Asman has no twin siblings. It's my understanding that this witness is well versed in conjuring artfulness. But such talents do not indicate that he was actually able to accomplish what he claims. Namely, the construction of what, by all accounts, must have been an extremely complex scientific machine. Whatever do you mean? Yesterday's proceedings brought the true nature of your past exploits to light, Mr. Drever. Indeed it did, my lord, as a swindler who preys on innocent scientists to elicit government grant money through conjuring know-how. Yes, it's true that I possess considerable knowledge of stage magic, but crucially, my scientific knowledge more than matches that of any academic in the field. Investigation of the witness's workshop attests to that claim, my lord. As evidence, the police found this Royal Society trophy for young talent in science there. Yes, that's true. We spotted it there ourselves. If a hypothesis is sound, it can always be forged into a physical manifestation with sufficient skill. Though I may have sold the secrets of some deceptive wiles to sniveling, talentless scientists in the past. Would you therefore assert that the explosion of the machine was an unfortunate accident, or, of course, a deliberate act of murder carried out by misuse of the science?
Counsel for the defense, your cross-examination, please.
Yes, my lord. Just gonna save quickly. So you were already acquainted with Mr. Asman himself? Not really. By chance, I'd seen his name mentioned in the papers, that's all. But I had no interest in his private affairs. If he was an unscrupulous investor, it was no concern of mine. As long as people pay their bills, I take up my tools and construct what they ask for.
So why did Mr. Asman approach you in particular, then?
Who can say? I presume because my name is associated with excellence in engineering. Not to mention excellence in fraud. Hard to gauge, but the point is, all I did was construct the machine according to the blueprints I was given. In other words, the kinesis machine was built on solid scientific principles. Yes, you might say that. Professor Hellbrain certainly has a mind like no other. It's clear that you have both scientific knowledge and knowledge of conjuring magic, however. The more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to handle whatever comes along. But your implication is that I furnished the machine with some trickery, I think. It's a possibility that we have to explore. Unfortunately, though, the machine has been blown to Kingdom Come. So there's really nothing left to explore, is there? Is there? It appears that the kinesis machine was fitted with a timed explosive device of some kind. And there's nothing left of that device either. Not a single shred of evidence remaining, I hear. He must have planned all this from the outset. But in any case, it's abundantly clear that the experiment couldn't have been a trick. Of course, that's it! Mr. Asman was a twin! Nope. Perhaps my learned friend wasn't listening earlier. Mr. Asman had no twin siblings. No, I heard you before, but the thread of hope hadn't quite left me. The demonstration could have been a trick if there was somebody who looked sufficiently like the victim. But Dr. Scythe absolutely ruled that out as a possibility. It is beyond question that the victim himself, Mr. Asman, did move from the stage to the Crystal Tower. The fingerprints found at the scene attest to the fact. So it can't have been orchestrated using someone who looked identical to Mr. Asman then. What are you thinking, Miss Nardo? Oh, no, nothing. Just that the idea of someone who looked identical to the victim is playing on my mind. It crashed headfirst, you say? According to the many witness reports from those there at the time, yes. Were you not there at the exhibition grounds on the day? Unlikely. I rarely leave my workshop. Yet another of your unique inventions was found at the scene. Well, it was the unveiling of a machine I'd labored over for many months. I saw it clearly with my own eyes, the birdcage plummeting headfirst into the tower. What a surprise. I believe the victim's neck was broken from their headlong fall, wasn't it? How would you have come by that information? Even an infernal recluse like me reads the newspapers, you know. According to the reports, 2 injuries were apparent on the victim's body. Yes, he'd been stabbed in the chest by a screwdriver believed to belong to the defendant, and he had broken vertebrae as a result of a fall from considerable height. Correct. My learned friend has been doing his research, it seems. Do we know which injury was the fatal one? Sadly not. Forensic science is not yet at a level where such things can be determined. What we do know is that the victim died having sustained both injuries at some point during the experiment. And since he was found in the birdcage with his neck broken, it's obvious that he fell from a considerable height. I suppose that's hard to deny. So you understood the science, did you? Not in the slightest. Oh, right. As I've said a number of times, I'm an engineer. My job is to manufacture according to the blueprints I'm given. I would be inviting manifold problems if I foolishly allowed my brain to digest the ideas behind them. I could be accused of stealing those ideas, for example. But how is it possible to construct a machine without really understanding the principles it relies on? Well, you're practicing law without really understanding the principles it relies on, aren't you? A very good point. Stand up for yourself, Mr. Nardo. The point is, the experiment resulted in instantaneous kinesis taking place. As such, the science must be sound. Yes, And really, experimental results are all that matters when it comes to proving a hypothesis. He's certainly very sure of himself.
What do you think, Mr. Otto?
Well, now that the machine has been completely destroyed by yesterday's explosion, it's going to be impossible to argue its authenticity one way or the other.
But if we're unable to establish that it was a piece of stage trickery rather than genuine science, we will have no grounds on which to demonstrate Professor Hadbrain's innocence.
Both Mr. Asman and the man in the stand tricked the professor and used him. They took advantage of his naivete and his unbending belief in his work, and I won't let them get away with it. And seeing as the professor is an old friend of Lord Van Zeek's, what on earth must he be feeling towards Drebber? Okay, so I have a theory. My theory is that Mr. Osman is actually not dead, and that what happened was the thing in the balloon, the body in the balloon, was actually a waxwork. And and Dr. Smythe, was it? Smith? The lady, with the white hair in the lab coat, she is in on it. And because she can always inspect a scene first, she created an autopsy report that, that lined up with how the waxwork had been taken. That is my not how it had been taken, how it had been, you know, damaged. That's my current theory. That the dead body we saw is actually a waxwork, and that the murder was created with the help of the doctor, who leads up the scientific team, the forensic science team, rather. I'm probably completely wrong there, but that's my current feeling.
What a wonderful machine!
You really love contraptions like this, don't you?
Oh yes, anything mechanical I find absolutely irresistible.
Almost irresistible, surely.
Well, whenever I see a pocket watch, for example, I can't help myself. I simply have to take it apart.
That's worrying.
Yes, Father tells the time by the rumblings of his stomach now. He's given up having a watch.
Poor Professor Mikatoba.
Look, Miss Otto.
What is it?
On the bellows just here, there seem to be some very dark red stains. Yes, you're right. It looks like blood, actually. Oh my.
I'm sure it's not what you're thinking. Ha 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 ha.
Oh, look! The cover came open. Yes, now there should be a glass plate inside. Perhaps change the plate with each new photograph you want to take, you see.
Is something wrong?
There is no plate. It's been removed.
Aw, what a pity. But I suppose if you think about it, this wouldn't be the actual camera that was used at the time, just like the waxwork isn't the actual person. So we'd never have found a photographic print of the executed convict coming back to life anyway.
Oh, yes, you're quite right, of course.
Poor Susato-san, she looks devastated. Yeah, I thought so. That line of thinking was a little weird to me. This piece of glass is almost as thick as it is wide.
Yes, I've never seen anything like it.
If you were to compare it to a human, only Mr. Sholmes has such thick skin.
There's really no need for such a comparison, Misato, as you well know.
Anyway, it can only be from the Crystal Tower, surely.
Yes, I think so too. It was probably made especially to meet the demands of that great structure.
There's a little metal plaque here, look. Fostering burgeoning talent for the future of scientific discovery. Seems rather ironic, doesn't it? But clearly, Mr. Drebber really was a very talented scientist. Oh. I'm gonna keep looking through these, but I think I know what the contradiction is. This lock does look very strong, doesn't it? There's definitely no way you could remove the mask yourself if it was put on you.
What a terrible way to treat someone. You've been a convicted criminal.
I know, it's starting to make me livid, actually.
Mrs. Naruto, please. I mean, just think about it. Imagine if you had an itch on your cheek all of a sudden. You'd be utterly helpless. Well, yes, that's true. But I'm not sure that warrants quite so much anger.
Oh. Right. Sorry. Prisoner, blank, reacted for copy of jail. The student and the professor. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight. Because basically what I'm thinking is if we present that, no? That last statement would seem to be at odds somehow with the evidence. It is your task, counsel, so to explain this somehow to the court, not the other way around. It just seems to jar though, don't you think? What I think is that this whole exchange has become extremely jarring, yes. Perhaps I need to reconsider this. What I'm trying to prove is that he did understand the science. Shoot. Oh wait. Head first. Oh, duh. I mean, my guess is that will still come in later, but for now... I know... Oh, whoops, whoops, whoops. Wrong button, sorry. Apologies, everyone. Voila. There we go. We've examined the birdcage that crossed into the crystal tower ourselves. As you can see, the cage, which is a wooden construction, has the same damage in one particular spot. Following the explosion, it fell some 30 feet into the glass of the crystal tower. That little damage is to be expected, surely. I agree. The damage itself is entirely understandable. What doesn't make sense is the location of that damage. All the breakages in the wood are at the base of the birdcage, not the top. What are you saying? What are you saying? Basically, my thought is, my thought on how to perform Trevor is that for the most part, I'll have that sort of robotic voice, but then there will be moments when I break, when he sort of breaks character and talks normally. What are you saying? That's the opposite of where they should be. That's right, my lord. The birdcage that was at the scene is damaged at its base. So we have reports of the birdcage falling headlong into the crystal tower, yet the damage is at the bottom. The only way to reconcile these two facts is to accept that there were two birdcages in play that day, which were at some point switched. Switched during what wasn't a scientific experiment at all, but an elaborate piece of staged trickery. Gah! Good gracious, explain yourself, witness. Well... If we examine the facts, there's only one logical conclusion we can draw. The damage on the base of the birdcage clearly indicates that it crashed tail first into the tower. But multiple witness reports claim it fell head first. The birdcage materialized in the sky next to a balloon flying over the stage following a spontaneous explosion at an altitude of some 60 feet above ground level, which is approximately 18 meters. It then proceeded to fall some 30 feet into the crystal tower in the ensuing deflagration. Witness reports amid such chaos are notoriously unreliable. Objection. But the victim's neck was broken. Objection. He plummeted 30 feet inside a heavy apologies. He plummeted 30 feet inside a heavy wooden cage. However he fell, it would be unsurprising to find one or two of his vertebrae crushed. A riveting scientific analysis of the events from the prosecution there. Though, to be even more rigorous, you would have to say that it was only one vertebra, actually. It wasn't quite for long.
I find it hard to see what's motivating Lord Van Zeeks. This witness is clearly a swindler, and one who deceived a personal friend of his.
If you're going to establish this deception, do it right. Sorry? I feel like that's the undertone here. Ah, yes, and there's one more point the defense appears to have forgotten. It obviously wasn't a trick, as a certain truth very plainly demonstrates. What?
It seems to me that the cross-examination had better continue until we resolve this matter. Mr. Trevor, you will amend your testimony with details of this truth.
Of course. We must treat the matter scientifically, after all.
I nearly had him there.
The kinesis clearly took place because there's nowhere else 30 feet high for the birdcage to have fallen from.
Hold it!
What do you mean? What do you mean? Well, before the demonstration began, the victim was alive on stage in front of the audience. Yes, there are lots of witnesses who saw Mr. Aspen on the experimentation stage. That's true. And the victim's neck broke as a result of an impact following a fall. Logically, therefore, the victim must have fallen from somewhere. The balloon that exploded was at an altitude of 60 feet. The point of impact on the tower was 30 feet up. That difference of 30 feet is therefore the total distance the birdcage fell. And there's no other location from which the cage could have fallen that distance if it didn't drop out of the sky. Ergo, the victim himself must have been beamed from the stage into the sky above the crystal tower.
A trenchant scientific analysis. Dear me, every time I hear it explained, it sounds increasingly plausible.
Oh yes, it's all very well thought out.
Certainly, all the spectators on the day saw it. The birdcage plummeting 30 feet through the air, I mean.
Irritatingly, yes. This is a diagram of the experimentation stage and its surroundings. We know that somehow the birdcage appeared in midair before falling down into the crystal tower. A fall of about 30 feet, or 9 meters. However, if you examine the diagram carefully, you'll see that there is one other possible location from which the birdcage could have fallen. The same distance of 30 feet.
No. Well, it appears that events is a possible explanation to put forward. Go ahead, counsel.
Yes, my lord. Of course.
You will indicate the place to which you are referring on this same diagram. The alternative location from which the birdcage could have possibly fallen the requisite 30 feet.
If it had fallen from here, the birdcage would have plummeted the same 30... Yeah. If that's my learned friend's claim, I suggest he demonstrates for the court personally. Huh? And you may consider this a parting gift, Counsel. I feel like I've just hit the deck from 30 feet up anyway now. Just hit the deck from 30 feet up anyway now. Don't give me recourse to make the next fall from 60 feet up. You will indicate the place to which you're referring to on the diagram.
Take that!
Nope.
Objection!
I'm honestly pretty unclear on what we're trying to... I can't...
Take that! Objection!
Nope. So, let's see. I've tried...
Take that!
Nope.
Objection!
Thought it might be... No, you couldn't fall it from the crystal tower. I'm really not sure. I thought maybe from up here, but...
Take that!
Nope.
Objection!
Thank you, Counsel, that will do. But my lord, wait! The defense is still in the process of establishing its argument. No further analysis is necessary, I feel. As such, I shall be requesting the final decisions of the members of the jury. It's been an honor to serve, my lord, and we know exactly what we think now.
Guilty! 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 Guilty!
Guilty!
Guilty!
Mr. Albert Harebrain, in accordance with the findings of this court, I pronounce you... guilty. Guilty! I applaud the jurors for doing their civic duty and for finding a swift resolution to this matter. That is all. Court is adjourned. Honestly, I'm just gonna look this up. Because I really have no idea whatsoever. Let's see. Okay, this is super unclear, but...
Take that!
the place I'm referring to is here. But that's where the birdcage would have been to begin with. Which is exactly the point, my lord. Yes, the birdcage was in the machine on the stage. But what we must also consider is the height of the stage itself. Go on, Counsel. It turns out that the experimentation stage was built at a considerable height above ground level. If you look at the diagram, in fact, you'll see it's at about the same height above the ground as the balloon was above the crash site. When the experiment got underway, the machine and the birdcage were engulfed in steam. At that moment, the floor of the stage gave way, and, if we assume there to be a void underneath, this birdcage and the one seen by the audience have fallen almost the exact same distance. Once again, my lord, this all points to the fact that there was not one birdcage, but two.
Objection!
My learned friend has no evidence that the stage had such a contrivance in its design. Someone is responsible for the criminal destruction of the kinesis machine itself, it's true. However, the stage still stands. And take a moment to look at the photographic print of the scene following yesterday's explosion. Good lord, the metal grill that formed the floor of the machine is undone! Yes, most likely blown open by the force of the explosion that destroyed the rest of the machine. The defense calls for the space below the stage to be investigated immediately. Huh. So, I was wrong that they faked his death, but that doesn't necessarily mean I was wrong about the duplicate being a waxwork. It would just mean... yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry, that whole thing was just confusingly, like... It was just a confusing question, kind of. It did not work for me at all. At all. Mr. Drebber. It was you who built the kinesis machine. Which means that it was you who built the two bird cages that were used to carry out this deception. Whether Professor Harebraine's hypothesis is sound or not makes no difference, because it's the construction of the machine that matters. A machine designed to take Mr. Asmund's life. And lay the blame firmly at the Professor's door. Something that could only have been carried out by you, Mr. Enoch Drebber. Grrr. Roar!
Objection!
If my learned friend has reached the end of his wild assertions, the prosecution would like to crush the defense's argument slowly but surely. What? Your argument fails to hold water on two counts. 2? Firstly, before and after the experiment, this witness went nowhere near the kinesis machine. Every relevant member of staff in the exhibition has attested to that. And I believe members of Scotland Yard have also been on watch duty at every public experiment. In other words, Mr. Drebber had no opportunity to switch the alleged pair of bird cages. I've already explained why he wouldn't have needed to. The nonsense with the crossbow, that doesn't bolster your case at all. The man who disappeared from the stage and the man who crashed into the tower are one and the same. The forensic investigation team's report is unequivocal on that point. Unless, of course, the forensic investigation team is compromised. Huh. And the second flaw in your assertion is a distinct lack of motive. Why would this man have wanted to take the victim's life? He had no reason to do so. A motive? Do I have to think of everything myself? I have here a contract provided by the witness. What contract is this, Lord Van Zieks? A contract in which Mr. Drebber entered with the victim, Mr. Asman. Oh, I said Osman earlier. Sorry, Mr. Asman. It reads, Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government grants or other income. 30%? Certainly very favorable contractual conditions. But there was one very important provision bolted onto that clause. What provision? Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on condition that both contracting parties are alive. In other words, if either of us were to die, the contract would become null and void. So you see, I had nothing to gain from Mr. Asman's death. The diametric opposite, in fact. Need I say more? The witness had neither an opportunity nor reason to commit the alleged crime. In short, the possibility of Mr. Drebber having done as you suggest is nil. It seems the defense's assertion was somewhat wide of the mark. Lord Van Zieks, you will submit the contract as evidence, please. It's true. If Drebber had no opportunity to switch the birdcage under the stage with the one in the crystal tower, he couldn't have done it. And in any case, I have no idea what his motive might have been. There is one aspect of your argument that still holds true, however. There were 2 birdcages. The prosecution is unable to deny that. So I'm sure you're on the right lines, Miss Nardo. And I've no doubt there are other aspects of your assertion that are undeniable truths too. Well, it would seem that the defense has no rejoinder to offer. Well, I must say I'm a little surprised. I came here to testify about the machine I built, and instead my reputation is defiled. But the prosecution's counter has set the record straight, I think. It's impossible that I'm the culprit.
Objection.
At the beginning of this trial, we believed that there was only 1 birdcage. Yet now we know there must have been 2. In other words, there was more to the demonstration than we realized at first. I think it's abundantly clear that the same applies to the culprit. Get to the point. The stage demonstration was constructed and set up in its entirety by you, Mr. Drebber. Therefore, it's inconceivable that you had no hand in the events that transpired. So if circumstances mean it's impossible that you could have carried out the crime yourself, it points to the fact that someone else was involved. Someone else? Counsel, are you suggesting... Yes, my lord. Mr. Drebber had an accomplice.
Objection!
An accomplice now? Well then, I presume you're prepared for what's to come. Now that you're accusing not only this witness, but someone else of the most serious of crimes. If these accusations turn out to be false, then make no mistake. The prosecution will demand an equally serious punishment for your slander. Well, Counsel? Do you intend to pursue this course and formally accuse another party of involvement in this matter? What do I do here? At the moment, this is little more than a hunch on my part. I don't know for sure if Trevor had an accomplice, or even if he really is the culprit here. One way or another, though, I have to make my position clear. As a lawyer. So what's my stance going to be? Did Trevor have an accomplice, or not? The defense is ready to name Mr. Drebber's accomplice. Somehow the two bird cages must have been switched. Everything points to that. Yet according to the coroner's report, that's not a possibility. But that inconsistency itself is a clue. Counsel? My lord? You have received a stark warning already. If you have nevertheless determined, I must now ask you to identify this alleged accomplice by name. So, your answer, please. Who do you claim to have been Mr. Drebber's accomplice?
Take that!
The name of the person in question is... What's wrong, my Nippity's friend? Surely fear doesn't bind your tongue now. It's a little late for that. Of course I'm afraid. After all, naming her in this capacity is definitely going to make waves. A lot of waves. I could very well turn every single person in this courtroom against me. I'm sure it will be alright, Miss Sato. Thank you, Mrs. Sato. The enemy always appears larger than life, but you all appear exactly the same to the enemy. Alright then, here goes. You've kept us waiting long enough. Your answer, counsel, now. The person who colluded with Mr. Drebber in order to carry out this wicked crime is Scotland Yard's coroner, Dr. Courtney Scythe. What the blazes are you talking about? Dr. Scythe? The head of the forensic investigation team, the coroner who conducted the autopsy on the victim. We know there were two bird cages, so who could have carried out the switch to complete the illusion? The accident that happened in front of a huge crowd of spectators, and the area was immediately sealed off. And everyone, police officers included, were banished to make way for the forensic investigation team. When else could the switch have occurred? It could only have been in that team's presence. It's essential that the court determines exactly what happened following the incident. The defense demands that Dr. Scythe be summoned to the witness stand at once to testify.
You've got nerve, lad. Standing up there dragging the yard's name through the mud.
I didn't mean to...
I know the woman very well. There's no better dead room worker out there. How dare you call her a criminal?
My learned friend's imagination appears to be wilder than the East End at night. But the recklessness of your accusation aside, there's another grave problem with your argument. One which the prosecution demands you address at once. grave problem. Oh my word. Who do you claim acted as the victim's doppelganger? What? Certainly if the bird cage containing the body of the victim was exchanged for another, that cage must also have contained a body. And yet, no missing persons or accidental deaths of anyone even remotely resembling the victim have been reported. Which means there was no one dead or alive who could have fulfilled the role of a body double for Mr. Asman. That's true. If my argument is that there were 2 bird cages, then there must also have been 1 person inside each. I don't know if I've got an answer to this yet, have I? What can I do to reveal how this body double stunt was achieved? Okay, how do I... I'm going to try and name Madame Tuspels. Very well. The defense will address my learned friend's concerns by revealing the identity of the person who acted as Mr. Asman's body double. Ah, shoot. Be my guest. Give us a name. The body double and the birdcage were hiding inside the balloon that was floating above the stage, which means that any witnesses would only have seen them from 60 feet away. Who was it that appeared out of that explosion some 18 meters above the spectators? Aha! In place of Mr. Asman in the second birdcage was... I guess, because I was gonna do that, but my thought now is this person is the... Oh, no, wouldn't you agree? I would not. Would anyone? I'm sorry, Miss Sato. Even you're turning your back on me, Mr. Sato? I must be really wide of the mark. You have a head. Try using it. Okay, I'm gonna try Madame Tuspels. I must ask you to reconsider your answer, Counsel. I don't know if I've got an answer to this, have I? What can I do? Oh, okay. Very well, the defense will address my learned friend's concerns by presenting evidence that reveals the true nature of Mr. Aslan's body double. Good gracious, evidence? I do hope this isn't filibustering, Counsel. The court is expecting a name. If you think you have relevant evidence, present it now. The body double and the birdcage were hiding inside the balloon that was floating above the stage, which means that any witnesses would have only seen them from 60 feet away. So who was it that appeared out of the explosion some 18 meters above the spectators? Aha! Body double inside the second birdcage was... Okay, I'm gonna try this. Yes! Okay, I got it. We know that the victim, Mr. Asman, was in the birdcage that was situated inside the kinesis machine on stage, and therefore he couldn't have been inside the second birdcage. Instead, that contained something else. What's been described as a body double, which is what fell from the sky and crashed into the crystal tower. Yes, Counsel, according to your somewhat elaborate version of events. And that body double inside the second birdcage was, in fact... It's alright, Miss Naruto. You're ready for this. Just steel yourself and come out with it. Thank you, Mrs. Sato. I needed that. Sorry, the cameras are a little... There we go, that's a little better. As I was saying, the body double inside the second birdcage was, as unbelievable as it may seem, that thing there. Open your eyes and look into mine, my Nippity's friend. Now tell me, what are you playing at? Stand firm now, Rhinosuke. This is the time to show your Japanese spirit. As the court will observe, this is a waxwork model. A model, in fact, of an infamous London murderer from 10 years ago, the Professor. You started by indicting the leader of the forensic investigation team as an accomplice in this crime, and now you've moved on to indicting waxworks. Yes, that's about the size of it. Yes, that's about the size of it. But why? And why this waxwork? It looks nothing like the victim. In fact, it could hardly resemble him less. What possible justification can you give? If you want to know why, ask Mr. Drebber. What? Just days before Professor Harebrained performed his public demonstration, Mr. Drebber abducted this model from Madame Tussbell's. Did you say abducted? And 2 days after the incident at the Great Exhibition, he returned it to the museum. Then the timing. Is this true, Mr. Drebber? At first, I couldn't see why Mr. Drebber would have stolen the waxwork and then given it back again. But now the reason is clear. He took it so that he could put it inside the second birdcage as a body double for Mr. Asmund. Yeah!
Objection!
Are you hearing this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Are you hearing the defense's astonishing proposal? That the witness fabricated this vast machine with the intention of deceiving some wretched scientist, that he did so in collusion with the country's finest coroner on a public stage in front of a vast audience. And that, to effect the deception, he used a waxwork model that in no way resembles the victim. Are we really to believe this far-fetched tale? What do you decide?
Objection!
Wait. Yes, if you put it like that, of course it sounds implausible. My lord, I need to speak if you please. Go ahead, Mr. Foreman. Myself and my colleagues have reached an agreement. Very good. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will state your leadings for the court to hear now.
Guilty! 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 Guilty!
So, as indicated by the foreman, the jury has reached a consensus. I knew that was going to happen. We shall get through this, Mr. Hardo, as we always do, and uncover some new truths along the way, I'm quite sure. Yes, I agree. I'm going to have to appeal to the jurors as usual and see if I can persuade them to change their minds. The defense will now embark on a summation examination. Are you and your fellows ready to proceed, Mr. Foreman?
We are, my lord.
Very well. In that case, I ask you now to state clearly for all present to hear the grounds on which each of you have decided the defendant is guilty of the crime on which he is charged. Jurors continues.
I've known that woman for years. She'd never been accomplished anything.
It's utter nonsense to think that
It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another.
Oh dear, this is most troubling. But surely the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the coroner, is it? Surely the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the coroner, is it? I have had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much.
I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the bird cage. It's conjecture.
Accusing someone without right evidence, he's not proper job, is he? I won't have it. Somewhat unsurprisingly, it seems the introduction of this waxwork model to the proceedings has polarized opinion. Given that its face is obscured and its build in no way resembles that of the victim, I can only applaud my learned friend's temerity at suggesting it was it as Mr. Asmund's body double. Yes, the applause is deafening, and yes, I know it seems extraordinary, but that's the point. That's why I have a strong feeling it's actually a greater clue than anyone yet realizes. What are you thinking, Mr. Haddo? I can't explain why at the moment, but I feel as though there's a specific reason why it was used. Why it had to be this model. Really? A reason why nothing else would do, you mean? Yes, and I'm convinced it's something far more significant than whether or not the model looked like the victim. Well, if that's the case, we must prevent the trial from ending prematurely at all costs. Yes, agreed. I have to find a way out of this. If you are ready, counsel, you may proceed with the summation examination. Yes, my lord. The order of things seems to have changed around here for some reason.
I'm a copper, lad. It's a copper's discretion to bend the rules sometimes when needs must. What's wrong with that?
Where do I start?
I've been working at the yard for 40 odd years.
That's even more than I thought.
We've only had a metropolitan police service in town for 70 years, you know. Of course, times have changed. The public didn't trust coppers back when I started. It was rough. We had to fight crime, and we had to fight to win the public's trust as well. And win we did. Forensic science was in its infancy too, even more than it is now. And she spearheaded the revolution.
Dr. Scythe, you mean?
And she spearheaded the revolution. That's right. About 10 years ago now it was, when I was still the youngest body on the beat. That's when she started making a name for herself as a top-class coroner. And now look at her, head of the forensic investigation team, and a woman no less. Well, you wouldn't hear me complain. So we dreamt it back then, I tell you.
Could you tell me without holding that gun in the air?
We were all out to uphold justice, lad. Full of vim we were, full of vim.
That's coming across loud and clear. But we're only just starting to understand this case. What are you reading there, sir?
The man behind those murders on Solar Pond Street was caught in 2 days flat. That's real policing for you.
That's really not relevant to this case, is it?
You're wrong there.
Wait, hold on, what was it?
You're wrong there. You're wrong there. Because it was Dr. Scythe in charge of examining the bodies. And it was evidence arising from her work that led to the arrest of the scoundrel responsible.
Oh.
That's right, oh. That woman is at the forefront of this country's fight against crime. The idea that she's somehow involved in this murky business is a load of old tosh.
Thought it was up to me to press the jurors, not the other way around. Why would you assume that?
Well, quite simply because the unsettling swindler has no relationship with the woman, does he?
True. As it stands, we don't know of any connection.
Of course, but it would be delightfully romantic if they were somehow to have a mutual interest in the waxwork.
Romantic?
A woman of society such as myself views everything in terms of relationships, you know.
Well, you learn something new every day, even if you don't want to.
One might wonder about a possible relationship between the defendant and this coroner woman. Or perhaps between the defendant and the handsome prosecutor just there.
This woman may be more astute than I've been giving her credit for.
If that's the woman's stance, then perhaps demonstrating some connection between the waxwork and Dr. Scythe would be enough.
Yes, I agree. As soon as we have even a whiff of a connection, she'll be the first to know. I have had my own problems. What sort of problems?
Let's just say that we have run into each other on numerous occasions when I've been performing on the street.
Right, I see.
Obviously, artists such as myself cannot appear on stage as we work in close proximity to our audiences. So we perform our great magic in parks, on street corners, and the like. But the police use any excuse to make our lives difficult. Whoop.
Excuse me.
Do you have something to say in response to that, Mr. Ottermole? Who are you calling a mass murderer? Ah, sorry, my mistake. I got confused because I heard you look like him.
Well, I don't look anything like the man. You want to be looked up, Sonny. Sonny.
Thanks, Mr. Sholmes. Perhaps we could move on. I was really wondering if you had something you wanted to add in response to what juror number 3 just said. And clearly you do. Oh my god, do not handle a gun like that.
Back in my day, back in the good old days, it wasn't like this.
What was it like, sir?
We worked our fingers to the bone to earn the public's trust, we did, and by Jove, we earned it. People respected us back then.
Respected you? Ha!
No one would have called a coroner into question in them days. Coroner's report was the hallmark of an investigation done right, especially when Dr. Courtney Stevens put her name to it. She was the best of the best, and the apple of the force's eye.
Hold on a minute. What are you talking about? Who's Courtney Stevens?
Oh, sorry. Got a bit carried away there.
Stevens is Dr. Scythe's maiden name. Her maiden name? So that was before she was married.
Of course, yes. Silly mate. It's Scythe now, ain't it?
Stevens. I'm sure I've seen that name somewhere recently.
Hey, what? The point is, those were the great days of policing, not like now.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. But do you think you could change your statement to include that name?
Well, yes. I don't see why not.
She was legendary, was she?
What did you say? That woman is still the best coroner in the land. Head of the forensic investigation team.
Legendary was your description, sir, not mine.
Rubbish, that would never pass my lips. I never describe anyone that way, ever. Not if they were still in the game.
I think the point you're trying to make is that Dr. Scythe is an extremely talented coroner. Would that be fair?
It would. If it weren't for the fact that you're trying to drag that legendary woman's reputation through the mud.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that legendary. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that legendary. What sort of Sometimes they even cook up a story to extort monies from... Sometimes they even cook up a story to extort monies from the poor. Well, that's definitely not right. Yes, and it is why I say that if you trust the police, you will have trouble. But here you are, claiming this waxwork model was stolen to star in an illusionary spectacular. The idea is so wild, I think I will take my chances and believe the authorities on this occasion. This is how the public at large view Scotland Yard, is it? Our own police force in Tokyo is not even 20 years old yet, is it? Perhaps we should view what's happened here in London as a measure of what may happen at home. Yes, like a Scotland yardstick. I wonder how a policeman would feel listening to the way this juror speaks about the force. I'm sure he'd have a word or two to say in response. But you claim the whole instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a trick.
That I did. But there's more than one way to pull a rabbit out of the hat, ain't there?
Sorry?
I grant you, given that this cage appeared from a missing explosion, there had been no need to use a real person. But if a waxwork had been used, the culprit could at least have had the dice inside to make it look like the victim.
I'm not sure exactly how much criminals are governed by decency.
The point is, if you're gonna make a claim about that waxwork being inside the birdcage, you need to give us some evidence. Without that, it's just not science.
I suppose we should expect nothing less than a logical argument from a fellow of the Royal Society. But that perhaps means his mind could be changed if we managed to present suitable evidence. Evidence that the Professor Waxwork was inside that birdcage. Can I produce that or not? Nothing yet. Well, I can state quite categorically, sir, that we have no such evidence at the present time.
That much was abundantly clear before the brassy proclamation, I assure you. And why you can count on the fact that I shan't be changing my leaning.
Oh dear, that proclamation was even brassier than yours, Mr. Hutter. If only we had some evidence, things might be different, though. Oops. I know it seems a little far-fetched to think that the waxwork model of the professor was in that birdcage, but on the other hand, it explains a lot. If there really is a reason why that particular waxwork had to be used by Mr. Asmund Stubble, we must do everything we can to make the jurors understand it. The truth is, I'm sure that's the key to this, but it's the most puzzling part of it, too. In that case, you should see what additional information you can glean whilst trying to change the jurors' minds. If you can read a book whilst eating a rice cracker, Mr. Otto, I'm sure you can do this. Right, yes! I've gotta ask, why have you brought that corn into court with you? Corn up cob? He's been growing back on the farm. Picked him off on my way into town. He's a proper nibbler, he is. Yes, the nibbling seems to be taking quite a while. Maybe it could wait until after the trial? Oh, I don't like the sound of that. You need kernels at all. You need kernels at times like these. Whenever I have something too big to decide, the kernels always point me in the right direction, say. You're talking about your cob of corn? Nibble on a guilty bobble, nibble not guilty out. Nibble novel, guilty bobble, nibble not guilty out. Nibble novel, guilty bobble, nibble not guilty out. Nibble novel, guilty bobble, nibble not guilty out. Perhaps it's akin to fortune-telling with flower petals like people do back home. So Professor Harebrain's fate is to be decided by a cob of corn. Could you not at least wait until we had more time to find the truth before deciding on the defendant's guilt? Oh, I don't know about that. My tumb's awfully full already. Amazing. Oops, I meant, hold on. The investor, Mr. Odie Asman, hereby entered into contract with the provider, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to fund labor and materials for the construction of a super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine. Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remuneration, okay. Oh, you can't present anything here. Those two statements clearly contradict each other. Good gracious! To whose statements do you prefer, counsel? So, juror number 2.
Oh gosh, me? What can I do for you?
I presume that you heard what juror number 6 said in his statement. It's brought to light that the maiden name of the coroner, Dr. Scythe. It's brought to light the maiden name of the coroner, Dr. Scythe, which in turn has revealed a connection that wasn't apparent before.
Well, naturally, as a woman of society, I find such connections and relationships irresistible. But oh golly, I'm afraid I fail to see what you mean.
Dr. Scythe's maiden name is Stevens, and through that name, the coroner is very definitely linked to the waxwork of the killer. The defense has evidence to prove it.
My goodness, evidence, you say? How utterly enthralling.
Counsel, the court cannot overlook that last remark. I very much hope there is substance to your claim. Of course, my lord. I would ask the court to look at this. The evidence that clearly links Dr. Scythe to the master murderer known as the Professor.
Take that!
I have here a certain autopsy report from 10 years ago. A 10-year-old autopsy report? What relevance does that have? It is, of course, from the autopsy of the person portrayed in the waxwork, the killer known as the Professor. But the man was a capital offender, so... That's right. This is the certification of death that was drawn up after the convict's execution. The identity of the killer was never made public, so the report gives few details. But what's important is the name of the coroner who wrote it. Courtney Stevens.
Oh my, Courtney Stevens!
Struck a light! It appears that the Professor's autopsy was conducted by Dr. Scythe 10 years ago, and a few days ago Mr. Dribber very deliberately stole the waxwork of the Professor from Madame Tussbill's. A waxwork that doesn't in fact resemble the victim, Mr. Asman, at all.
And do you suppose there's some unsavory relationship between those events?
Absolutely, I'm sure of it. There's no doubt in my mind that the Professor case is at the heart of a link that we have yet to uncover between Dr. Courtney Scythe and Mr. Enoch Dribber.
Hidden links, mysterious connections, secret relationships. This is all most extraordinary. We're surely obliged now to explore this further.
Woo! Quite right. We can't let this trial come to an end now. Not while there's this cloud of suspicion hanging over the yard's best corner. It wasn't like this in my day, but we're still here to uphold justice in the end. So the Professor, that's what links... Oh, whoops. Hold on. Prove that it was in the birdcage. Well, let's look at the birdcage. Trying to see if there's any proof in the birdcage that the Professor was in the birdcage. Or the waxwork of the Professor, rather. Apparently not. Oh!
Hold it!
No, wait, no, I meant to do... I have evidence.
Hold it!
Actually, I have something I'd like you to see, sir.
Oh? I must warn you that I firmly believe it's only wise to trust men in white coats.
So given your jet black outfit, I don't mind admitting to a sense of trepidation here. So you don't trust anyone in black? Looking in the mirror must be very trying. I do have some evidence that proves the waxwork was inside that birdcage. Namely...
Take that!
What's that? A piece of glass? Oh, it's unusually thick for glass. Yes, it's a piece of broken glass that we found inside the jacket on the waxwork. As you say, it's not ordinary glass, though. It's very thick and clearly made for extra strength. Much like the special glass that was developed for the construction of the Crystal Tower.
The crystal... Holy smoke!
Exactly. The centerpiece of the Great Exhibition where the very incident we're talking about took place. On the day in question, the birdcage fell from above and smashed through a window with that special glass.
From whence this small piece originated.
Is that it? Precisely. So, what do you say? Now that clear evidence in support of the assertion has been placed before you.
Well, as I said, I only trust men in white coats as a rule. However, when the reasoning is sound, it's fair to say colour shouldn't come into it. In light of what you've shown me here, yes, I feel obliged to change my position on the matter.
In that case, jar number 4, you will amend your statement now, please.
Hold it!
Thank you for reconsidering your position, sir.
Your words are misplaced, boy. My opinion is governed by logic and science and nothing else. Yes, science is where you should direct your words of gratitude. What's the matter with you? Too good to say some words of thanks to the mother of all academic subjects.
What is it about scientists, honestly?
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other. Good gracious, to whose statements do you refer, counsel? If you could put down your corn for a moment, juror number 5. Oh, you mean me? You've pointed out that it's wrong to make an accusation without evidence, but the accusation that the waxwork model was inside the second birdcage on the day in question is not without supporting evidence, as the defense demonstrated to the juror sitting beside you. Oh, is that right? Would it be fair to say you didn't follow the argument? I don't understand much besides Colonel Kolb, to be honest. Of course you don't.
If I could interject here.
Please do, sir. Now that this assertion of yours about the waxwork has been backed up by some solid evidence, it would be wrong of me, as a man of science, not to pursue the matter further. Ah, well, me too, then. Sorry? If this brainy gentleman says he's right, then he must be. See, I wouldn't dream of going against Colonel Kolb or anyone who's got stuff in between the ears. Success, if you can call it that. Thank you, counsel, that will do. As a result of the summation examination, the jury's overall leading is changed. 2 jurors now call guilty, against 4 who call not guilty.
Accordingly, the court has failed to reach a consensus at this time, and the trial must continue. We did it. Oh, well done, Miss Ardo. Another wonderful victory. Waxwork of the despicable professor used as a body double for the victim in this quite extraordinary case. I must say it's extremely hard to believe the assertion could possibly be true. However, it would appear that it does at least warrant further investigation. It's the waxwork of the professor that links Mr. Drebber and Dr. Scythe, and I'm convinced that there's a special significance to that link.
I don't know what you're hoping to prove, lad. I really don't.
The truth, sir, by using evidence and testimony.
Oof.
If the court is to delve deeper into the alleged involvement of the waxwork in this case, then the prosecution calls for the owner of the model to be summoned as a witness.
The owner?
Madame Tuspels. I really thought that Lord Van Zeek would object to this whole line of inquiry.
Very well, I can go. Make arrangements for Madame Tuspels to appear as a witness with immediate effect.
Listen carefully, my learned friend. Oh, yes? You should know that you're on the brink of opening Pandora's box.
The court shall now adjourn for 45 minutes. During that time, the prosecution will summon the new witness and prepare her for taking the stand.
Madame Tuspels, yes. I shall see to it at once, my lord. Perfect timing, really. It's 6:54. That's only 6 minutes before I usually end. So, perfect timing, really. Yeah. So, here's the deal. I'm gonna be gone all of next week. So we're gonna do some more lucid dreaming this weekend on Saturday. But so there's one more stream this week, which is lucid dreaming on Saturday. But then I'm gonna be gone for a week. And but then I will see you when I get back, and I'll figure out a new game for Tuesday nights. And we're probably also getting close to the end of lucid dreaming, so I'll have to figure out something for that too. But yeah, anyways, thank you so much to everyone who wasn't here, and I will see you all on Saturday for one last stream before I'm gone for a week. Toodles!